Welcome to the 150-year exhibition of the church. This is James Archer was our first pastor, and this is the desk that the church presented to him at one point, so that's his original desk. And various artefacts of him. And details of him, and that's a bust of him. And a photograph. And over here we have his portrait. This is a memorial to James Archer Spurgeon, which was in the church, which we had taken down when we do projecting of the hymns on the wall. These are various items from very early days, a formation leaflet from the Baptist Free Church, and when they used to meet in the Iron Room, and various pre-church minutes. This is a memorial stone which was laid in the hall round the corner, and that was the first building that was built. And Charles Haddon Spurgeon actually laid the foundation stone there. And then this is a picture of them laying the foundation stone in the actual church building, the main church building, and that's the memorial of that. And there's details here about the early days of the church and how it started. And Sir Reuben Barrow was one of the founding fathers. This was another plaque that was up in the church. He was an eminent guy. He was an MEP and a JP, we've got extracts here from his will and details about him, and various letters that were sent. Joshua Alder was one of our founding fathers. He was from the Alder's shop in Croydon, and he was very eminent in our work. So This is a detail about 1869 and all the other things that were happening around the country in 1869. One of the loan certificates when people loaned £10 to the building fund to help with the building. And this is minutes of early church meetings. This is all about Reverend T.I. Stockley, who was the second minister of the church, and various details about him. And he went out afterwards to be a missionary in the Caribbean. 50 years ago we had our church centenary, surprise, surprise, and this is details of the services we had and a special centenary newsletter that was produced. And this is the book that was produced, 100 Years on the Bridge. As you may know, it's called Spurgeon's Bridge out there. And so this was a history of the first 50 years, and we produced that book then 50 years ago. And there's a record there of what happened on our anniversary weekend then. These are different leaflets about church things, and that's another photograph of James Archer Spurgeon. Photograph of the induction, everybody queuing to get in for the induction of the Reverend Geoffrey King at the church. And another picture inside the church when we did the songs of praise from the church. One of our ministers, the Reverend Leslie Larwood, sadly died of cancer, and he only had a month to live when he was diagnosed, and he preached a very good sermon about it and how he was ready to go to heaven, and it was printed out and lots of people have used for that. We had two mission churches, people from Memorial Hall as it was then, now Parsons Road. Say it again. This is Memorial Hall, now Parsons Road, and Boston Road Baptist Church now. And they used to be part of our church and their daughter churches of ours, and so they then became independent. And these are various photographs of past people maybe some present people as well, so people have been very interested to see more. These are old group photographs of the deacons going back in different years, so what a sturdy bunch they were. And then these are old church magazines. The old years have all been bound into books, so we've got books here from a selection of them, and some of the selection of other individual ones, which are quite interesting. And here there's details of a few baptisms and dedications that took place. This is an interesting book which has, when people joined the church, they were given a set of little cards, and when we had a collection at the communion service, they put their card in the collection to prove that they were there, and if they didn't appear for several months, the chances are that they might be struck off the church roll. This again is very interesting. These are the pew rent stubs. So years ago, people used to pay for a particular pew, for the use of a particular pew in the church. So that's the stubs from that. And these are old photographs from inside the sanctuary itself, inside Hall 2 and also inside Hall 1, which had different names then. They've been changed over the years from one name to another. So we come on to our building works. During the war, a flying bomb fell in St James's Road and caused quite a bit of damage to the then building, which we've got 2 pictures of, and these are pictures of when the work was being redone there. Excuse me. Details of how it was done initially, and then in 1979 there was more of a major refurbishment that was done. Then in 2004 to 7 we had a big building works going on here. Two staircases were demolished in the building and one of the rooms, and in their place there was a lift and one other staircase built. Then behind the platform of the church, the little staircase there was demolished, and that became an open area. The toilets were redone, and the rooms behind the church where communion was prepared or where people would change for baptisms, and that was all redone there. There was also another small lift put between the 2 halls, and then the toilets down, and there was a kitchenette built upstairs as well. And the toilets were redone downstairs, and a shower room was put in. And then outside there was a garden put out in what used to be the old bicycle sheds, and there is now a church car park there as well. And then in 13 and 14 there was some more work done, which the 2 rooms downstairs, which were always getting damp, the floor was raised, and so then there was a new entrance built at the bottom of the slope, and there was a new office made and also the lounge. And in each of those last 2 things there was big celebrations when we opened. We had special opening ceremonies with people coming to open and cut ribbons for us, and there was a flower festival for when we had the first opening in 2008, flowers all around the building depicting various parts of the building, and it all came from verses in the Psalms. And then in 2014, after this one, there was another opening ceremony with cutting a ribbon there. This is one of the 2 hymn boards that were up in the church, because years ago we used hymn books, and that was to tell us what the numbers were. Now it's all projected on the screen, and we've still got the box with all the numbers in. And then this is all about the organ. It's a Willis organ, and it has quite a lot of special features, so that's details about that. When the building works were done in one of the halls, this cross was then put on the front of a desk that was in what was then Spurgeon Hall. and there's things with monthly offerings. And this is a very interesting article. It's a board that was put up in the church to say that the amount required to keep the building going was £5 a week. A bit different in my day. And this is a model of the church, which is very beautiful. It's I don't quite know how old it is, older than me anyway, so it's quite old, and very beautiful thing that we've copped. Yes, when people were baptised years ago, they used to wear these, or the ladies used to wear these white dresses, and they had lead weights in the bottom so that as they walked down into the water wouldn't rise. And then as they came out of the water, people put this mauve cloak around them. Various initiatives from the church some years ago. Yes, Burrell Mead, which is an old people's home, and jointly with our church and another church, it was started back in, I don't know, 1960 probably or so. And there's details about that. Our church no longer has special responsibility for it, it's left with the other church. And also there was a home built where young people could go and stay, young girls. And another house where little flats for flatlets where people could go and live. So different buildings that we've had. And then one of the main things that we have done for some years now is the Refugee Day Centre. And we have people in every Tuesday and give them a meal, and they also get given clothes and various things to help them on their way, because a lot of them have just arrived at the church with nothing. So that's about that. Right, William Wilcox was teacher and superintendent of the church, of the Sunday school, and that's a memorial to him. And there's various children's works there. A long while ago, children making parcels for poor children. This is pictures of the beginners as they were, now sparklers, and all the little children coming each Sunday. And then the junior church, which ran around the 1970s, and my mother used to have 80 or 90 children in what is now room 1, it was room 9 then, and they came every Sunday. And this is the register that she kept of all the children coming, and then visited them when they didn't come along. Christian Endeavour is a national, worldwide movement, and we had a very strong young people's society, particularly, also children's society, young junior society as well. So that was the pledge with that, and that's when we had an anniversary at the church. And then the young people of the church on 2 different occasions went away down to Worthing for a weekend and had a great time together. Over the years we've had many missionaries that have gone out from this church and been called by God to go and serve abroad, and that's a list of them there, and there are details of various ones that what they have done and where they have gone. Grace Bennett received an OBE for her work, and others have gone away, and the Barndons formed from hospital, which is still going today in Nigeria, and that's the parents, along with Frances, their daughter, who was a nurse out there, and also Jean, who later became Jean Johnson, who sadly died just a few years ago. When James Archer had been here 25 years, they had special celebrations for him, and at that time the caretaker's house must have been being built, and so they actually put a memorial stone in the front of the caretaker's house, which was knocked down some years ago when we sold the land for the flats that are now there. And there are various leaflets there which we had, which were there, well I say we, I wasn't here then, but the Thanksgiving service for his 25 years of ministry here. So the ministers of the church are all listed on a board which was upstairs in the church, and now we have a card with all their photographs and dates on them. This is a copy of, the address is deleted, of our membership roll from the last 30 or 40 years, and when people actually were baptised and joined, and then when they sadly left us, but for them went to glory. And the details of the membership numbers over the past 30 or 40 years, which are up around the sanctuary, and this is a smaller version of them, and starting with details of the early church and the leading lights that helped us in the beginning, Joshua Alder and people, and then about the local missions and going off to Memorial Hall on Boston Road. And then there's the First World War, and how of course numbers declined, and how in fact a number of people actually went out from our church.
Okay, cool.
So yes, there's details then of the interwar years, of the Second World War, but how a lot of numbers declined in those days of the membership. And then we come to the overseas missions, and people going out from the church, which you've seen already on the missionary boards, and Vaughan Hospital, which the Bandans founded, which is still going today in Nigeria and needs quite a lot of support. And then from 52 up to the present day, details of how things and how numbers have picked up in recent years.
Okay, here you go.
This is a list of the people who lost their lives in the First World War, and indeed the Second World War, and subsequently in Afghanistan.
Okay.
So this is one of the old pulpit desks that we used to be up in the church, and on it here we have a sermon which was preached by James Archer Spurgeon on the occasion of the visit of Mayor of Croydon to the church. Hope you've enjoyed it all.